The Therapist and the Coach podcast is a space for real relational conversations about what it means to be human.
In a world obsessed with fixing, achieving, and self-help, we invite you to pause, lean in, and discover the wisdom already inside.
Together, we explore how healing, growth, and transformation can happen not in isolation, but in connection.
Through open-hearted dialogue, we challenge the myth of self-regulation and self-improvement, offering instead co-regulation, psychological safety, and the power of being seen.
Hey, Oren.
Hello, Lerae. Good
Hello. We're
morning.
doing it again.
We are
Episode
doing it
15.
again. April 15th. We can't fool anyone today. We missed the window with April 1st. How are you?
I'm very well. I'm very, very well. Thank you.
Glad to
You?
hear. I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Another comes bright and spring arrived here in Portland. And can you imagine you're next to the woods as well, right?
Well, we were still waiting.
We're still
So
waiting.
hopefully it'll make its way east from you on the West Coast and it'll
It's
make its way
coming.
a
It's
little.
coming. I'm
Yeah,
sending
I'm
it
not
over.
far from you, so hopefully we'll.
Yes.
I am enjoying the brighter days, and I'm a little bit. It's interesting because the British Columbia government, and I don't know how they make these decisions, but they decided not to observe daylight savings from this point forward, so the time won't change in the fall, which will affect my schedule, I think, with some of my clients in other parts of the world. It's going to be a little
Yep.
bananas for a bit, but
Yeah. Yep.
I might be working later than yeah, it's very
It's
interesting.
kind of like, oh my goodness, now with the timing and everything, I need to figure out every bit with everybody in the world. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very curious as to what that'll be like. Um,
Yes.
but yeah, so I love being here with you, and I'm excited that we're heading into brighter, longer days, a bit of sunshine and warm, and
Exactly.
we're still having these conversations.
Yes. Let's
Yeah,
start with
and
let's
we had kind of a cool idea. I wanted
yeah,
to like maybe just drop it in here at the beginning, and then we can circle back to it at the end.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. So we had this idea that because we've been talking about it, we talked about it. I think in episode 12 or 13, we said, "Hey, we're going to create a space where people can join the conversation." And then we had the epiphany this morning. Well, why don't they just join the podcast?
Exactly. Exactly. We thought about then again, we'll bring some experts, in different areas, but I'm thinking that there's full of experts constantly showing up
Yeah,
and the people don't have their voice. And
yeah,
it will be the most uh, congruent, relational, humble way to have conversation about whatever we want to talk about with whoever wants to come and talk about. And we'll just dedicate shows for that, just to have conversation with whoever wants to come with the topic that we will probably present, where people can sign up and they will come to join our podcast. And that will be so needed. It's so wonderful. I'm thinking that again, there's constantly expert, including us, talking
yes.
about things. And our intention is to just bring everyone and hear everyone and hear people that so many times don't have a voice, and to talk to them directly, and that will be wonderful.
Well, and it gives us something more to it just enriches the space that we have here with different perspective, different understanding, questions, input, insight. And so that's and it's interesting because you use the word expert, and as coaches in training coaches, one of the ways that we help coaches stay in a role of coach is reminding them that their clients are the expert of their lives, that the
Yes.
coach is the student of the
Yes.
their client or their coachee, and to bring that curiosity. So it's exciting for me because that's a very interesting place to be. So I hear you saying that while you may be a trauma expert. I may be a life coaching expert. That's not what this is about. It's really true and aligned with what we say this podcast is, which is real relational conversations. And now we're
Exactly.
opening up the space, which it feels a little edgy and vulnerable and because again, can't control it. And yet trusting that is such like trusting that whoever shows up needs to show up, whatever happens, happens. That's very much how we came to
Exactly.
meet and
Exactly.
what we've been
Exactly.
offering to each other this whole time.
Exactly.
So why not
Exactly.
extend that out? I get kind of nervous butterflies in my stomach, but it feels really exciting and
It's
interesting.
exciting. It's exciting. It's exciting and it's important. And it's exactly kind of walking the talk of what we're talking about and the way we are. We just want to invite the community and whoever that wants to come and
And for
and
whatever reason, like
for
there's
whatever reason that they want, no prerequisitions, no filtering. We're going to allow that to happen and have a conversation, have a kind conversation. And I can't wait for that.
yeah. Cool. So and maybe no one will show up and that's okay too because you and I
And that's
we
okay
can
too.
fill a space. But and what a lovely invitation. Now I also am aware and I want to speak to this that we're inviting people to a podcast. We're comfortable in this recording space because we get talking and we forget that we're recording and that might be, not a comfy place for people to enter into and yet at the same time I just want to say that whoever feels called to this is one of those opportunities to heed a call or an intuitive knowing. We've talked about that in our podcast too about how important it is to follow those breadcrumbs or those intuitive sense, and have the courage to do that. So what I can say is I know we'll meet people within the same love and care and consideration and respect that we receive each
100%.
other.
100%.
Any question, any thought, any input is welcome. And
100%.
so what I think might be fun is that maybe this is just emerging as we're talking,
Go for it,
that
girl.
every second podcast is a group conversation about the topic. So today
Mhm.
we decided that our topic just again we're like, hey, what are we going to talk about today? And you're like, well, today I've got nothing. You usually bring these fantastic ideas.
And you came with a great one.
And what is that one?
Why don't you? It was your idea, so I want to
Okay.
give you. I want to give you the stage for that.
Well, it's something that I experienced in my life, and I made it my work to create programs and to encourage people to know they didn't have to live with this quote syndrome to the same extent that they may have been. It might always be present, but it can be minimized in a really big way, and that's what we refer to now as imposter syndrome. It's called a syndrome. I use that word lightly because it's the name or the language we put to this human experience. And yet, some people talk about feeling like a fraud or feeling like, that there's going to be found out it is the human experience. So I thought it might be useful to talk about that here and also be a space to invite people to, because it persists because of the shame attached to it or the fear or we've talked about how for safety we learn how to get our needs met and we learn how to get the gold star and do well and we learn what our boss wants and then we excel in that area and but yet just to be real with all of who I am and be seen with all of who I am. This speaks to my favorite quote and then I think I'll be done. Elizabeth Gilbert says, to be seen, fully seen, and loved anyway is a human offering
Oh
that
yeah,
borders on miraculous.
that's so beautiful.
And that's a lot of what we talk about, like the safe space that we create for our clients to be seen. And then just in that being seen, there's a relief and a release because they learned it's okay. Like that was my own experience is that the
Yeah,
layers and I could only expose certain aspects of myself at a time. I couldn't just take the lid off. But there was this deep limiting belief that I picked up somewhere along the line. You know,
Right.
Brene Brown talks about it as enoughness, like not being enough. Some people it shows up as mattering. For me, I got the message I didn't matter. So I went and created a whole business around mattering, right? Like I matter to my clients globally. So, I mean, it's there's positivity in this space, but it's that I call it, well, we spoke to it some time ago, but I call it the secret self, this self that I hide away, the one that I hope nobody finds out, or I go into spaces and I have to pretend
Right,
that
right,
I'm confident when really I'm
right,
feeling so
right,
insecure
right.
because I don't know, this is, yeah. So that's what we're going to talk about today.
That was so wonderful. Thank you for saying all of that. And I think that so many people can relate to that. And when you mentioned that today to me, the topic, I said, oh, that's a wonderful one. And I personally can relate to that too. And I just told you a little bit before we started that I felt throughout my life that I was a fraud, that I am a walking fraud, that I'm manipulative, that I can, and I'm good at that. And that was always like, how can I, that was something that I couldn't really mend in my life. Like in that, how can I, because in order to even manipulate with people who are smart and to get in, you need to be smart.
Yeah.
You need to have the capacity in that way or another to do even that. So I couldn't really understand how I am doing all I'm doing with the people that I'm associated with. It's supposed to be, a lot of smart people in different capacities. And at the same time, I felt like nothing inside. Like if people saw my true self, I mean, I'm going to call it true self, false self. It doesn't really matter.
Mhm.
That's,
No, I think the naming of it is important because
yeah.
different
So,
people resonate. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's like so I thought that if people really saw me, I will be outed, I will be paraded. It was the whole thing like shame, and it all starts with shame,
Mhm.
you know. So it was always like it's very, very difficult it was difficult for me. I can imagine it was difficult for you when you're talking about your parts and for so many others that I have so much empathy not to the fact that they were like, you see, I kind of that, and people prey on that. It's like, oh my God, he was a fraud, or she was a fraud. Nobody is born fraud. Nobody wants to lie. But as I usually say, we lie when we can't say the truth from very,
Mhm.
very young age. So when I had, and just talking a little bit about what caused that is that the moment that I was born, because of the needs of my parents to be in a certain way, the cute one, the smart one, the talented one, the one that they constantly praise and parade, that's what I picked up. And so, how can I be a person even? If I cry or if I'm vulnerable, I'm getting shamed that I'm, too vulnerable and too sensitive. And if I had to lie because I was scared to say the truth because I would get beaten, then I would be told that I'm a liar. So it's coming from so many directions where your true self, who you are as a person, just people being a person, was not welcome. It was redirected to be in a certain way. The tree kind of grew like this, you know? And so for years of having that day after day where you are basically put in a slot of how you should be or how you need to adapt to, and it's not who you are, while your basic needs is to feel loved by your parents and by your environment. There's no way I could be gay in Israel. So I had to lie my teeth all the way to my own friends. Who wants that? Who wants to lie to their friends or to the people that are close to them? So I'm starting with a lot of empathy to to the syndrome of so to speak, like, when we develop that. And so many times we screwed that up. It's so young and it starts so early that a lot of us, many of us, cannot really feel, we don't feel that we can turn the screw to the other way because it's so deeply stuck. And how can I all of a sudden, after what I achieved with the people that I have, with the life that I made, which could be a whole big facade that you got recognition and all that, but you feel very different inside. How can I unscrew that right now? That is a lot. That is tough. So I just want to start with having that. I have so much compassion and kindness to people who can't say the truth. Now, I know other people are getting hurt by that. You might expected something, you developed relationship, then you find out that some parts of that person are not the way he or she were told you, but yet you might love them. So the capability of holding the whole person, rather than us splitting off and say like, oh my God, he's a liar, she's a liar. I see a lot of documentaries, on people that hurting other people on the internet in that way or another, and there's horrible things, not to justify any of it. And there's times that but with that, I kind of feel like, my goodness, what this person needed to go through themselves, um, to somehow survive the only way they know, while building a building that they could not climb down from it. And the consequences is it's hurting others, but at the same time, is what it is to be them. I'll stop here, and I want you to hear you too.
We're being so kind to one another today. I love it. Well, I just really appreciate all you've shared and illuminated from your own experience of this. And it just resonates to my own as well, which I think I'd like to share just because of bringing the humanity to this topic, that it's something that we share. And I'm not going to say everyone because that's a sweeping generalization. Yet, what you're talking about, and there's threads of it in previous episodes as well, I'm realizing as we're talking too, is this the adaptation that we're so brilliant, our little young selves, we're so
Yes,
brilliant to get our needs met
yes,
that and to as the more we became aware of our environment and interacted with our environment and those in it informed us. I mean, that's the nature nurture conversation. But yet the adaptation to like actually believe the lie, whatever the lie is, that I don't matter, that I'm not enough, I'm not worthy, I I'm not acceptable, like I'm a liar, like all those lies. Because again, nobody's born that way. That's not the truth of who we are as human
no,
beings
absolutely,
innately.
yes,
Yet through experience and interaction with our environment and the input that's there that reflects us, that's all we've got.
yeah.
So we learn that there are certain aspects of self that are unacceptable
We're so alone, and it's being
in
so
those
alone.
spaces.
Yeah.
Well, and yeah, because we're alone, because whether it's trauma, I mean, like trauma in the abuse standpoint or trauma in the sense of humiliation. A lot of
Oh
mine
yeah.
came from humiliation. Yeah,
Oh
there
yeah.
was some abuse, emotional for sure. I witnessed physical abuse, but I didn't understand it. So my little brain makes its, evaluation of what it is. I'm like, well, I'm never going to let that happen again. That hurt or that was awful. So I'm going to take
Exactly.
a hard left because
Exactly.
you made this like, what did you say that the tree grows? I can't
Tree
remember.
go The tree goes like this, like the
Yeah,
trunk goes like this, and then it's kind of hard to even think is and
come
it
back from that.
well, yeah, and because there's so many branches coming from that. I mean, we live that.
It's the
Imagine that you kind
foundation.
of putting the seed for something, and people get to know, and you don't trust yourself to be yourself, and
Well,
it's the
but
whole
you
thing is
become
held by that.
by nature inherently you have to disconnect from the true self. You have to disconnect from your soul design, which is where, when people ask, I was asked this question, what breaks your heart? And what breaks my heart is thinking about people having to turn themselves inside and out, and even myself, the years that I walked around feeling like a shell, like you said, or feeling alone, or feeling like I was the only one that was grappling, and all this life force, this creativity, this energy goes into hiding and
Yes,
showing what
yes,
feels like a lie about who I am. It feels like a fraud, a mask, whatever it is, because I become immune to the original injury or the original adaptation or the original thought process or the thing that I was was actually trying to avoid by believing this about myself doesn't exist anymore, but I'm carrying it forward.
Yes.
And in doing that, here's what I bumped into. And I'm going to tell the story because the story feels important. And because there was an age and there was an exact moment. So I'd had both my children, and I had my children at 38 and 39. When I got married at 36, I told Brian that I had to have my kids before 40. So we were on it. we, and and I was sitting over in my office, which was a little guest house on my property, and I had this realization that there were two distinct selves, and the person that I thought, like, okay, so here, okay, there's another part to this story that I almost forgot, and it's essential. And that is, I had this conversation with Brian, and he said to me, we'd had an interaction, and he said, "Why don't you treat me like one of your clients?" I was like, "Whoa, what do you mean?" And that's when I'm like, I need a hot minute. And I went over and I'm like, he's right. There's my coach self. And then there's this like nasty, angry, short-tempered, like I actually didn't recognize myself because I'd never been married before either, like, or in an intimate relationship to that extent. So I saw myself in a new light that was not comfortable. Like he was reflecting back like well, not like the ugly parts of myself that I try to keep hidden, but I couldn't hide
Yeah.
from him being married. It
Right.
was incredibly shocking and almost like a psychic fracture. Like I literally had to go and say, okay, this isn't the truth of who, then that's when the fraud thing came in. And I'm like, I'm not really, and I looked at leaving the coaching industry because I'm like, well, this isn't like I'm this person. But actually, here's what gets lost is that I was actually both. That's what I realized in pondering for a couple of hours and just sitting in this revelation was I'm both. But what broke my heart for myself was that I couldn't see that the coach was the true essence of me. And that's why I felt so called to it and I felt home there.
Yeah.
But what kept me from fully embracing that was these lies that I'd been keeping about myself that I'd never let anyone see until Brian,
Yes. Yes.
which was very healing.
Yes.
So I could
Because he
let
loved you
down
because he stayed.
because he stayed and I tried to push him away. I mean, that was all part of
Of
that
course.
process
Of course.
was, I 3 months pregnant. I'm like, you don't have to stay. I got this. I'm okay having this baby on my, like, he's like, what are you talking about? The
No,
biggest
you're
problem for
exactly
me was
right.
that he stayed because I had to see myself. And I've got to turn down my heat. So just give me 1 second.
Please.
So, yeah.
Thank
So
you
that's,
for sharing. Thank you for sharing that this is so important for so many level in your story because we were that part of us was shamed by the people, not intentionally. Then again, they were shamed too. Or talk about multi-generation process. But when we were shamed for part of us by the people that we loved and were connected, our parents, our caregivers, our whoever that is, that then we don't feel that we're loved in that section, in that part. We feel that if we and when we're kids, it's kind of go either or. We cannot really hold that, oh, my parent doesn't love me about this, but they really actually love us. It's a split off. It's like if they don't like us for something, we get the message. It doesn't have to be explicit, it can be implicit. It can be like, my dad loved the fact that I was succeeding in sports. So I picked it up very, very young, and I would go that direction because that's how I got my father alive and connected to me. Did I want to play the way competitively the way he wanted? Absolutely not. I wanted to play, but he liked me that way and liked the recognition that I got, living vicariously from me. So here is like a way that I all of a sudden had to I kind of like, okay, I'm loved if I'm really good at something and can be proud, whether I'm beautiful and my mom parades me on the street and everybody say how cute I am, or that I'm smart in this and everybody that I could pick up that was their needs. So at that point, my own needs were shamed. you talked about shame. This is where the shame starts.
Mhm.
So when that starts in such a young age, and the message that your little world, your world as a little person, as a kid, is getting the message that vibration, the sometimes it's explicit, so many times it's implicit. It's kind of like very subtle messages that you want to see how you're loved and what's considered to be not okay. And in that way, you all of a sudden start not being a person. Your person part is getting broken, is getting shamed. And that's where we start thinking to get something in order to also exist, to be valued. So I got the message that I'm valued if I'm performing all the time. And that's what I started building in my world. And that even continued after I became older. And I said, oh, if I'm going to be so successful and rich and recognized, I'm going to write a book that everybody would read and I'll be famous. And because I'm famous, I'll be seen. But here's the trick. I would be seen for the performance that I did, not for really who I am inside. This is
So
so
the emptiness,
the emptiness that,
the doing, and we've talked about that. I'm really excited that there's so many things that we've talked about that actually
oh yeah,
feed
it's all
into it.
connected. It's because it's all interconnected.
Right. It's all the human
It's
experience.
all the human experience and the implicit memories, what it is. Then again, this is how the tree is growing. This is the little by little, the memories that I got. It's not memories of cognitive memories.
Yeah.
It's the, for example, my father's narcissistic needs to get things from me, his emptiness, to feel with me, by me. He was not differentiated enough to let me be me because he was not. So I had to, and it's always subtle messages. Besides the explicit messages, was like you're loved because you are cute and you're polite and you're everything that everyone wants. And then I remember when I was 14 or something like that in high school, I don't know how it's got to my mom. I started smoking cigarettes with my peers. And my mom found that she said, Oren, you? It's like, you? I would never think that you would immediately like it was not what expected of me. It was like people that kind of like heard about this, like, but you're an athlete and you're this and you're that, and just and I want to smoke with my friends. That was the time that we could kind of like, have fun. I wanted to just be not the perfect guy,
Yeah.
but I had to create that false self. Because otherwise, as you said, like, why would you trust Brian or anyone that was intimate with you, because the people that were intimate with you, talking about intimacy as getting close, as shamed you. So why would we trust that we can be who we can be and will be okay? That takes time. And Brian did stay and loved you for exactly who you are, even though yourself inside thing like immediately protected yourself. So like, I'm gonna be okay. You were ready to be rejected just like you always been in the past. Yet the corrective experience and the regulation, we talk about regulation, but also the healing part was when Brian actually told you, I saw that part of you. I'm not going
Mhm.
anywhere.
Still here.
I'm still here.
20 years
And
later.
that this is the work that
The
I'm
state.
doing, is being with people that are, and gradually it's not what I say, it's just the fact that today, after my own healing, that I accept these parts of me and can talk about them without any shame
Mm.
because I have empathy to myself now.
Yes. Which you
Then we can actually start letting others be that. And that's the only way that we all of a sudden people have meet somebody else, not within the vicinity of what they know, that somebody actually loves them. It took years for me to open up to my therapist because I built the whole facade with her too.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful,
I,
potent.
I think there's a lot to talk about still, and I think we probably wants to hopefully, if somebody then again heard this conversation and wants to join us for next week, we're good. But I think that from my part, I would like to also talk about the neurobiological perspective of that and also the physics of that, because it has to do with manifestation. It has to do with how we are in the here and now and the vibration. It goes back to the vibration that we emit, because
Mhm.
if we don't have it ourselves inside, and we're it's not only alone because you cannot tell to anyone, and you by yourself have to perform all the time, which is exhausting,
Mhm.
but also what kind of thing that we bring to the present from that experiences of not being loved and to for really actually who you are. So I think that it will
Mm.
important to continue this conversation. We just
Okay.
started it.
Yeah, we're just starting it. We've just scratched the surface. And so here's what I'm thinking on the fly, and that is that we actually, because there is some admin related to having people join the podcast. So I think that might take some time given that it's Easter and we're
So maybe
so
we'll talk about
let's
it
have
next
one
week,
more
you and I.
conversation because we're trying to keep these to 30 minutes as well, which is a challenge for us. But yeah, okay. So we'll have one more conversation about that and then maybe just make notes of those thoughts that you're having so we can anchor back to them next week. And just thank you so much for being someone who can have this conversation with me and share of yourself. And it also encouraged me to share of myself and hopefully create a safer container for people to step into. Because whether you're a therapist or whether you're a coach, this space and like the self-regulation, the co-regulate, it starts with showing up in the space and then being willing to stay. And that stay
And being human, and
and
that's
being
what
seen
important. That yeah.
and try not to abandon oneself in the process, which is hard because I don't know, I can go like if people aren't shaming me, I could easily turn that on myself and shame
Oh
myself
yeah, yeah.
just to feed that
Of
lie.
course, it's such a yeah.
Be stuck in the pain. I know. I mean, there's so much to talk about here.
We
Okay.
will we will
So
continue next week for sure. There's such a large, big, potent topic.
great. And in the background, we'll figure out the administrative aspect of this, and then we can
Yes.
bring that out for anybody who might have an inkling or want to heed the call to join us and talk about this or ask questions or just be in the conversation.
And they will get exactly a non-judgmental kind environment as we
Same
are.
environment.
Like,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lerae, and thank you
Thank
for sharing your part in it. And it feels so wonderful. It feels so good to talk about it, isn't it?
It's so good to talk about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll see you next week.